Hello, so welcome to another episode of Men Able Matters with me, Steve Whitten. I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by a guest who's fresh from the retail coalface. Now, I say that he's recently finished a role as a sales manager in a retail car dealership and has gone on to own his own business and find the right balance between personal and work life. So he's going to be talking to me all about that and his experiences. And he's actually coming to us as well from a motorhome. So I'll let him explain why that is. But I'm delighted to be joined today by Daniel Edwards. Daniel, how are you, sir?
Yes, very well, thank you. How are you, Steve? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. So, Daniel, we can see you're in your motorhome there. So, in good men able fashion, give us an overview of who you are, where you're from, and what you do. And if you can tell us why you're in a motorhome as well, that would be good. And then we get that bit out of the
Yeah,
way.
absolutely. I can.
Um,
Yeah, I can make sense of that then. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Daniel Edwards. My previous role was a general sales manager within the say dealer sector.
mhm.
I now own my own business where we are sort of remarketing brokers for used car stock. Yes, I'm 33 years old. I'm in a motorhome because the office that I use is I sort of share an office with my father, who happens to be quite loud on the phone. And he bought a motorhome this year, which he's got outside his office. So I said, well, politely asked if I could get some peace and quiet from his voice.
Yeah. In
And
fact,
that's why I've ended up here.
I'm looking at it enviously and thinking, wow, that looks great. What a way to what an off. You got
Yeah.
the engine running, keep the heating on, or
Yeah, he's got an external heater in here, so yeah, I don't have to have the engine on. Luckily, it'll heat itself. It's absolutely, it's absolutely boiling in here. It's really, really
yeah,
nice. Actually,
I
really
bet.
nice. Actually,
Yeah, I was going to
I
say,
might have to come in
I'd
here
be,
more.
I might even be considering buying one of those. It looks great. That or a
Yeah,
that
very
or a
good.
boat.
Yeah, both great choices.
Yeah. So Daniel, you and I connected a week or so ago. We've been doing a few vlogs and videos and messages around the men able subject and about opening up about men's mental health. And you came through to me with some stuff, and we had a bit of a chat, didn't we? And
Yeah.
go on, as much or as little as you want. Share with us a bit of sort of where you've got to in terms of what's driven you to one, start your own business and do something in a bit different way, but also to be very conscious now of this sort of personal work life balance thing, and
Yeah,
particularly as somebody who's been a sales manager, because we've kind of aimed some stuff at them recently.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was diagnosed with depression in 2016. Something that I could not get my head around what was going on to me.
Mm,
I never, my mum's dealt with mental health ever since the passing of my nan. So I sort of knew what mental health looked like, but I knew what it looked like on the outside, not the inside.
mm,
And I've never been so confused about what was going on in my life in this dark cloud. And people talk about a dark cloud. I couldn't understand what it was, but there was a dark cloud coming over me. And yeah, I took a promotion in 2014, November 2014, at the age of 27, really
mm-hmm,
young.
mm-hmm,
The sales manager that we had to leave for some unsavory actions, unfortunately, which then led to me being promoted. I was sort of the next in line as such to become sort of a sales manager. But at that point, he had another 10 years within himself if he carried on. And I didn't see myself being a sales manager until I was late 30s, early 40s anyway. That's sort of
mm-hmm.
in my head, that's why I sort of thought, I was very content being a salesperson, even though I was an unofficial number two. Um, I was quite content with what I was doing. I was very happy at home. In the September of that year, we just bought a brand new house, doubled the mortgage. That was fine. Then in the October, my wife was pregnant, which was great. It's what we wanted. And then in that November, yeah, say something happened, and I got told, got kicked in the deep end, and it was difficult to not turn it down because in the back of my mind, I was thinking to myself, well, if I don't do this, then someone else could come in same age as me, maybe slightly older, even younger, and that could not my prospect going forward. So as much as I had a choice, I didn't in so much respect because I didn't know what the future looked like. And it's one of those things, I took it because I thought it was, the right thing to do, which, in so much sense, I had a lot of success, earned some great money, made some, met good people along the way. But as I say, for me personally, it just took over my life.
mm, mm.
And it's something that I want to make sure really it's a job that does, take over people's lives, but I want to make sure that people do, as you know, as you rightly said before, find that balance in life between, you know, work life and home life and
Yeah,
social
yeah,
life, everything, because it's vitally important. If you put too much into it, you can get lost within it for
yeah.
sure.
Now, I mean, you know, you and I, but you know, we're familiar with the environment that you're talking about, in as much as it, you know, a car retailer, a dealership, and it's a competitive environment. It's about being tough and about resilience and all of that. So, what was driving you, do you think, when this opportunity came up to actually think, yeah, I'm gonna go for that? I mean, it sounds like you weren't given much choice, to be honest. You sort of volunteered with your arm up your back a bit. Um,
Yeah.
but what was driving you to think, oh, you know, like you just said, if I don't do it now, I might miss out, sort of thing.
I guess it was perception. I think I thought to myself, I was ready. I think I speak to a lot of young salespeople, and a lot of young salespeople tell me who've only been in the car industry for a couple of years, perhaps, or less than
Mm,
that. And they all tell me I want to be a business manager. And then once I've got past that, I want to be a sales manager. I'm not there by next month, and I'm going elsewhere. And I think to myself, look, sit back and don't jump. It's
mm,
not all what it might seem to be. Yes, it's nice to have a steady wage as such. It's nice to have at least an income to sort of say, well, at least I haven't got to live on £1,000 this month. Um, but the driving factor was, it was people as well. I didn't want to let people down. I didn't want someone else. I'm very much sort of, I look after people quite a lot. I sort of put a lot of people before myself. I'll always put people before myself. It'll always be
mm,
a trait of mine. So I didn't want, because they gave me that, you know, they asked me the question, would I do it? And I was thinking to myself, well, you know, think of all the people at work, think of, you know, home, your parents. Are they all going to say, if I don't take it, you're mad?
mm, mm.
You know, so it was one of the driving factor was people, and I just thought it was the done thing to do and just accept it. And you know, I guess as well, you sort of take a, especially that age, even, you know, it's slightly sort of naive in a way, you do feel a bit sort of you know, special. You know, you do think, oh, well, they've asked me, so, you know, if I say no, then they'll never ask me again. And I suppose that was the main factor, is they won't ask me again if I don't do it. So that's what was pushing me to sort of to take it on, really.
Yeah, and look at this from the other angle, from the dealer's management perspective. You know, why do you feel that they sort of kicked you into the deep end, to use your phrase? I mean, you know, rather than perhaps go through a proper process of developing you over a period of time or putting the right person in, and you know, what was happening there for them, do you think? The
I
leading
think
question, I think. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think they did have trust within me,
Mm,
but I think it was the easy option as well. It
hmm,
saved a lot of hassle, saved a lot of interviews, it saved a lot of time.
mm,
You know, why not give me a shot, I guess, for a few months and see how it goes? Maybe that what was in the back of their mind. I just happened to be, you know, took to it like a duck to water, and was very successful from the off. I'm a very driven, passionate person. I will always do the best at whatever I can, and
mm,
I'm
mm.
good at seeing problems. I'm good at seeing where something's good and where something's bad, and I try and adopt it from there, really.
Yeah.
Um, so, but again, it's quite funny because I was on a branch outside of the main group, to be fair. So they never saw me day to day. They wouldn't have known what I did day to day. All they would look at as a spreadsheet and said, "Oh, Dan's doing well."
Mm, mm,
So that was probably their sort of, that would be the only proof they had on me, really, was spreadsheets and targets and so forth. So I just think it was more than anything, it was to give me the opportunity, possibly, but I think it was an easy option as well because it was a quick fix.
yeah, yeah. So you found yourself in the sales manager's role.
Yeah.
Um, do you, you know, maybe out of 10, how confident would you say you felt at that point in terms of doing the
Um,
job?
3, 4,
Okay.
because I knew how to do the everyday stuff of, right, you know, this is what we need to do, guys.
Mm,
This is the task at hand. Come on, let's go and do it. I could drive people. It was all the stuff in the background which I didn't realize. You know,
mm, mm,
you know, keeping an eye on stock, looking at the stock profile and going, hang on a minute, why have we got these and not them, or why have we only got a certain amount of cars and not more? You know, and you know, then all of a sudden, then, you know, having to authorize invoices, and you know, and because I was paid on a bottom line profit, it was all based off, well, whatever, you know, you spend, you know, you don't earn. So you were trying to go back through everything, going, oh God, we're spending that on that. Right, we need to cut that down because that's going to affect me personally.
Yeah.
So it was all the stuff really of that, and then an insecurity to go with it as well. A lot of the people that were my colleagues were now, I was the manager for, so it was quite nerve-wracking to say the least. And I used to go to work, and I'll openly admit that I used to go to work very scared. I used to give myself a prep talk in the car. I used to listen to music that would motivate me and get me going because I was just that nervous. Even to hold a manager's meeting or a sales manager's meeting in the morning, because it just didn't. It was just one of those where it was just, I'm telling people to do stuff that then I know they're not going to be comfortable with.
Right.
And it was a difficult time. It was only when I started to pull in more new people that it got slightly easier. That did. But it was something that I was very nervous going to work in every day.
So how many of them were older than you?
Only, to be fair, only two of them, and one by a couple of years, and the other chap, which was the difficult one, was sort of coming up to retirement. He was I think he was about 61 or so when I took over, and that was difficult. That was a very difficult situation to manage because he was at the opposite end of his career and just wanted the easy life, and I wasn't. I was this new kid on the block who was, my predecessor was in his 50s, so he was, he had a good job. Well, his wife had a good job, so he sort of had quite a comfortable living. So he didn't really push us ever. Whereas, now it was like, no, the culture changes. We go for this now, and the strong will survive. And we've got to go with it, and we've got to move forward.
Yeah.
And it was tough.
So you describe yourself as a 3 out of 10 on confidence.
Yeah.
But what would you say out of 10 you were in terms of competence?
Oh, I'd probably towards sort of the 8, 9, 10 area, because I'm a very confident person within myself. So, and I sort of slightly a bit of a perfectionist to go with things as well. But yeah, I knew how to do it, or I in my mind, but it was just all the other parts that sort of were trying to mangle together all into it. And I never had a backup either. I didn't have an assistant. I didn't have a business manager. I was literally on my own. The decisions fell on me effectively. So it was quite, to take that responsibility on and to build an armor at the same time, to build thicker skin. That was quite new to me. I know sales environment, you have to be tough, but this was a different sort of armor, and this was a different sort of tough, which, contributed towards everything, I think, really.
Right. So what did the business do in terms of kind of announcing that you were taking on this role then, and positioning it so that to minimize the awkwardness that you had with some of the staff?
They didn't come down. They didn't come down and announce it. They just told me that was it. I think they might have sent a group email out, and I had to tell all my staff myself. But yeah, they never came down and announced it from memory, at least, and I'm sure they didn't. And it was just one of those of, right, let's get on with it sort of thing. Really. So it was, there was nothing really official apart from, I think, an email, to be quite truthful.
Right.
Because if I remember rightly at the time, they were trying to keep it quite quiet at that point initially. So I had to literally work for a month almost as a sales manager, but not being announced as a sales manager, even though I knew I was. So when people received an email, they got an email before I told some of the staff who weren't in sales, and they were like, "Oh, you're the sales manager." It's like, yes, I am. So that was slightly awkward as well.
Yeah. So okay, so you're in the job, kind of been plonked in it a little bit, parachuted in maybe. And then I know from the conversation that we had before that had an impact on you, didn't it? Both personally and in business.
Yes.
And that's where was that when the slippery slope began? Yeah,
for sure. So my wife was pregnant, and that should have been my priority. And unfortunately, it's quite frustrating. I always wanted an iPhone, and I had a Samsung phone. My contract ended in the August of the same year, so I thought, get myself an iPhone. Fantastic. And then when I took over as sales manager, I got given a mobile phone, which just happened to be an iPhone as well. So I had 2 mobile phones by this point. I had a personal one, a work one, and I couldn't get off the things. And my wife's sort of pregnancy time, I didn't take into account. I didn't go to any of the antenatal classes because I was so fixated on work. Because I was on my own doing it. I couldn't have said, "Oh, can you look after that while I go and do this?" I didn't have that sort of flexibility, and there was so much wrong with what we were doing prior. And I was coming and going, "God, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. What is going on here?" And then all of a sudden finding people's habits, whereas before I didn't really look at it too much because their habits were my strengths because I was able to sell if they didn't do something.
Yeah.
Whereas now this became my responsibility.
Yeah.
So it was the balance of being a sales manager and having a wife that was pregnant. Again, the bigger mortgage as well now, which wasn't so bad. Now I'd more of a steady wage in so much sense. But I didn't take it. I sort of ignored what was happening. I ignored what was happening at home. I just was just fixated on work and emailing at night and so forth. I thought that's what I should have and meant to have been doing, and that's where I was wrong. And it was just starting to take over me. But I let it take over me. But at no sense did someone say, "Don't let it take over you."
Yeah.
I think people sort of think, "Oh, if he's happy enough doing that, let him carry on doing it."
Well, I was
And
just going to ask you actually, what do you think was, looking back on it, and it's easy to say this and do this stuff in hindsight, but what is it about the culture of the business or the culture of the industry, that makes that happen, that situation arises and we kind of go, "Oh, that's acceptable."
I think the culture it's so old fashioned. It's been done for years. It hasn't been changed ever. And and it's even worse now to me in so much sense. Live chats, dealers asking sales executive to take WhatsApp or go take live chat messages in their own time at night. And the culture tends to be, well, if you don't do it, you're not going to sell any cars.
Mm.
Um,
But
so
why is that happening in their own time? I mean, if that's, that stuff is changing and technology is rapidly moving ahead. So why are they having to do that stuff in their own time, not during work time?
because the industry is moving, they don't. It's typically of the industry. They will not. Some do, yes, absolutely. You've got digital sales teams, you've got all sorts of different parts to it. The small family-run businesses like ourselves aren't willing to invest that money into employing someone to do that. That's their job. They would rather see the salesperson do it, and if the salesperson doesn't want to do it, then they're not hungry enough. If they're not hungry enough, they don't want to be here, and we don't want them actually, because obviously they don't care. That's the perception. With the live chat that we had, I turned it off at 6 o'clock. Came 6 o'clock, it went off. But Muggins here was the one. If we did get a live chat come through, or if it was an email of someone asking a question, I was the one who was going back to it. I didn't want my staff disturbed, but yeah, I was the one who took it on. I felt it was my responsibility to do that, and again was never stopped at all not to. I just felt as if, well, someone's going to do it, I'll do it, and then then I'm in a conversation at night with someone trying to sell a car. And
so what I'm getting from that, and I mean tell me if this doesn't compute in the way that you explained it there, but what I'm getting from that is that the business wants to cling on to the traditional way of doing things during opening hours, but then expects everyone to do the modern, more progressive way that things are moving in their own time.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing, and that's where the investment comes in, and that's where you need a digital sales team possibly, or okay, you need different working hours. Okay, you're going to work from 12 o'clock until 8 o'clock tonight because you're on that shift pattern of answering live chats or whatever. Not it may be. It's never been a 9 to 5 job. But they so abuse that never been a 9 to 5 job, where you can work in a shop and then as soon as it's 5 o'clock, you leave and that's it, job done. I know, there's some industries where they do keep going above and beyond in their own time, but it's so expected. And I think that's a key word. It's expected in the motor industry. And it does affect you mentally. And it does because you are just ingrained in that. You're not ingrained in what's going on at home. You're not ingrained in what's around you. You're not ingrained with your loved ones. You're too busy thinking of keeping effectively someone else happy,
Mm.
and possibly not yourself.
So you see, this is interesting. I mean, I'm lucky enough I'm not in that environment anymore, but I could see this happening and I see stuff coming. And from what you're saying, you're right. It's not a 9 to 5 job, but so why do we cling on to having a full team there between 9 and 5 or 8 and 6 or whatever it is, when actually what we should be doing is having some sort of rota when we've got 2 people that come in at 11 and stay till 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the ones where, I mean, we were fortunate. We started at 8:30 and we closed at 6.
Mm,
And I stayed behind quite a lot, to be fair, doing different bits and pieces. I had 2 manufacturers to look after and a used car pitch, again,
mm,
on my own, effectively. So I was sort of staying behind late, doing reports and whatever was needed. But yeah, it's just, for sales executives particularly, I just think it's that sort of, people tend to think, well, if they're not willing to stay on, they don't want to be here. They're not willing to go above and beyond for us. They want they just want an easy life, and they need to understand this isn't a 9 to 5 job. If they're on commission, they need to, if they want to be here, they need to sell cars. It's a culture that desperately needs to change, because it does in retail aspects. You don't work at Curry's, you don't turn up at 8:30 and go, oh, do you mind staying on till 8 tonight?
mm, mm.
In fact, actually, not even asked, just expected to stay on later. It's a retail world. It needs to change,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
then people will have a balance in life.
Yeah, well, I absolutely spot on. I mean, that was the bit I was getting at in terms of the culture and stuff like that, and around the times that people work and what have you. What I'm also finding interesting, and I said this to you just before we started recording, was um, over the last few weeks, I've almost had a complete difference in terms of the conversations I've had about Men Able, and it's your age group. So if you don't mind me saying, you're 33, did you say?
33, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So it's the age group of kind of mid-20s to late 30s that get it and are going, this culture needs to change. The world does not look like it did in 1985.
yeah,
And yet
yeah,
what we seem to have, without being derogatory to anyone, or actually maybe I am, but if I am, I don't care, because the reality of it is majority of leaders are my age group, which is 45 to 60, who are still clinging on like grim death to a culture and a way of being that was exactly 1985.
yeah,
And I
absolutely.
just see it clashing. And I would look at you and go, so what's the answer, Daniel? Because it's your age group that are going to be running the show in 10 years time.
Yeah, and by that point again, it moves on again.
Mm,
By that
mm,
point, by the time my age group get to that level of these, directors and so forth, they think they have the answers and know all the answers. Effectively, it'll change again. It's changed so much within 10 years alone.
mm,
It's
mm.
changed rapidly. Even I even think back 5 years ago, live chat it just wasn't done. Anyone who attempted it never got it right. For me, yeah, it's, they have to, people hierarchy, and you do see it, and some groups have adopted to it. Especially some of the major ones, but not all of them at all.
Mm,
And that it have to ask, what I would say is, ask the people what they think's best.
mm, mm,
They don't do surveys. I don't know many companies at all that do a survey with their staff to sort of say, how can we make something better? If they do it's just to tick a box.
mm, mm.
But none of them really do it to look how they can improve the industry, or or their process.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's where I was going with the question about how confident and competent you were, um, in terms of going into that role and how much preparation you had. Because I think as an industry, we do have a tendency and a history and a legacy of actually putting, a warm body into a seat that's totally not ready.
yeah,
And then are we setting them up for success? So
yeah.
that's the position you found yourself in, isn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't fail. I couldn't fail, because I knew if it failed, I'd either one or two ways, right? I'd either prove them. If I failed, then my opinion, it was, oh yeah, we knew he was too young, he couldn't do the job.
Hmm.
I didn't have any training at all. I was literally just chucked into the deep end of doing it, and I had to let it to cope and to understand it and to build that confidence and to build that armor, I had to embrace it all, and I had to let it take over my life. And some places are lucky. Our other groups, for example, were quite lucky. They did have, they'd have a new car sales manager and a used car sales manager.
Right.
They'd have an official second in command. They had general managers on site who looked after everything. We didn't have that. We didn't have that. We did take a general manager on, but they wanted it to be more of a service role. So I really felt the pressure. I had to embrace it all, and I had to carry it. But that armor I was building, it wasn't armor. It was depression, and that's the part that's the cloud. The cloud took over me because, my wife was she gave birth in the June, and I remember so vividly. She was lying on the bed. She was holding me. I was born, and there I was, telling my sales team, emailing them about some information that the manufacturer had sent out, and I wanted them to know. And and even when I was on paternity, 2 weeks paternity, it was going to fall sort of towards the end of the month. But I was advised by my bosses to sort of take 1 week off, work the next, and then have the other week off as well then. So to split it up a bit, split the time up. Which to me, I was like, oh, okay, right, I'll do that then, And the whole time I was getting disturbed, emailed, phone calls. It wasn't paternity. I was at home, but I was absolutely just peppered. And then the last week, I was on my paternity. It just happened to fall on the last day of the month. And, phone call. We need you, you got to get yourself in. It's the last day of the month. What are you doing at home? Well, I'm on maternity. No, get yourself in. And oh, right, okay, young 27-year-old, okay, no problem. Or 28 by then. I'll be there. I'll come in. And
this for me is that's a reflection of our culture in the industry, and one that I've pushed back on for years. And I would continue to say, why does we veer away from the subject, and I'll come back to the depression side of it in a second. But why does month end cause such a big problem in our businesses every single month? Because, hey, guess what? Yeah. There's 12 of them in a year. And you must have bloody seen it coming.
Yeah, the manufacturers don't help. I mean, in that situation, I think we had some cars blocked at port. So we had the cars blocked at port. We couldn't register them. And we had to wait till 5:45 to get the okay to sell them off, even though they were at port. Now, my administrator only worked till 2:00. I had to ring. I was told, you're ringing and you're getting her back in. I could hear the
spuds boiling and the kids screaming their heads off.
And she was so upset to come in. She was so angry that she had to come in. And all she had was a box of celebrations, a small box celebration, say thanks. That was more insulting, I think, than it was actually as gratitude. And and you sort of think to yourself afterwards, I don't feel like a good human being doing this. This just doesn't feel right at all. I've abandoned my family. I've now got an administrator upset.
And all of that in the pursuit of 3 days into the next month, somebody sitting back and going, "Wow, that was great! Didn't we have a great month?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it starts again. The clock starts again.
Exactly.
It's as good. It's gone. It's happened now. You move on. And that's the thing, is the rat race of it all. But in that time, really, as sort of time was going on, I'd been doing the job then for 12 months, and by the December time, effectively, we'd had the best the best year on sales department on that site ever had. We'd made 50% profit on the year before. It was fantastic. And I remember so vividly on Christmas Day of that year, I was lost. Something new I knew wasn't right inside me. I was at home. You just sort of come off the roller coaster, and I thought, I know something's not right with me. And I remember we bought our little lad a sandpit and my wife wanted to put in the house, and I was getting so frustrated, like, why are we putting a sandpit in the house? I don't understand this. But I remember this anger inside and this resentment inside me was building up, something I've never been before. And then 6 months later, I was diagnosed with depression with some awful thoughts. I just hated living. I was in a goldfish ball. I was home, work, home, work, home, work. It was just awful.
So I'm sorry. I don't mean I'm not meaning to drag you down a route of reliving all of that. But what
No, it's okay.
do you think on reflection? Because I know when we spoke before that you're in a much better place now.
Yeah.
What were the contributory factors to you getting to the point of one, sort of holding your hand up and going to the doctors and getting this diagnosis over and above
Um,
what you've discussed already? Of course, it's quite a lot.
yeah. No, I mean, I just knew I was looking at a cliff. I drove past a cliff every night,
Mm,
and I knew I'd known over the years a few people have committed suicide from the cliff, and I just thought to myself, I used to drive past and look at it every single night and think to myself, that's the option.
mm,
That's the easy option out of this mess. Because at home, I say, it wasn't good at home. My life wasn't, I wasn't having an easy time at home. Work was pressure, but work was almost like my haven at the same point, because it was
mm,
so.
mm,
It's just a poison inside you that takes over, and it just started to take over me, I've always been sort of one of these people. I sort of say to people, smile, you're on camera, sort of thing,
mm,
and as now, and
mm,
so I can put a good front on at times, but I was just dying inside. And I remember when the doctor told me, I remember going down the side of the alleyway at work and just crying my eyes out. I remember ringing my mum, and I said to her, I've lost, I've tried,
mm.
I've lost. I can't cope anymore.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the crushing of my chest every day, I felt like it was going to like cave in on itself. The
Mm,
pain
mm,
at such random times as well, just panic attacks, just because of everything going on. There was just so much going on
mm.
that I just couldn't cope.
And so, what was the outcome of that? I mean, were you on tablets? Did you get counselling,
Yes,
or?
yes. I didn't see a counsellor initially. I just got put again. Doctors. I know there's some great GPs out there and so forth. All they did was just chuck me on a repeat dose of citalopram and get on with it.
Right.
Basically, there was no other help advised. There was nothing. There was nothing at all. I felt so lonely. My wife
Mm,
didn't quite understand what I was going through. She'd never known anyone with depression really, so she couldn't understand it. In
mm.
her head, what have you got to be depressed about? We've got a beautiful son. We've got a beautiful house. You know, we've got a great life. What's your problem? And that didn't help either, because then I thought, oh God, what,
You know what?
maybe.
I was just thinking that you said took the words out of my mouth. That didn't help, because actually, she's right. She was spot on.
Yeah,
But when you're in that dark place, that that just makes this situation worse,
yeah,
because
absolutely,
it kind of
absolutely.
shows us, it makes you think, well, I'm not getting the support or empathy that I need.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. And as that year went on, it just got worse and worse and worse.
Mm,
And myself, and even on the antidepressants, just made me numb. I was so numb. I had no feeling. And I'm scared to death of spiders. I hate spiders. I'll openly admit I hate a spider. And I remember there was one in the living room, massive one, and I went up and picked it up and chucked it out the window. That's the point I knew I had to do something. I had to change. And then the year after, I went and got counselling, and I paid for it myself.
wow,
And
wow.
I think I did that for 8 months. I think I did that for, until I just got to the point of, I think we both got to the point of like, it's time. It's time to stop now.
See, I,
But
I think that's fascinating. I'm going to talk about that with a friend of mine, Emma, who's an amazing coach, and we're going to explore, how can depression cause you to overcome your phobias, which is
yeah,
exactly what it
yeah,
did. That's
yeah,
that's a bizarre outcome.
yeah. I just thought that I didn't care. I got to the point
Mm,
where I
yeah.
didn't care.
Hmm.
What's that going to do to me? Kill me? Great. That's almost all right. And I remember I used to go walking at night by myself, and I used to think to myself, I just wish something would just an accident would happen. I wish something would just hit me. You
Wow.
know, why can't something just hit me and that'll be it? That'll be done. I haven't got to make that decision. Then someone's
Mm,
made that
mm,
decision for me.
mm,
I haven't got to, because in the back of my mind, the reason why I didn't do anything was because I was too busy thinking of. I was thinking of my family, but more so than anything, I kept thinking to myself, oh, I'm gonna leave them in the lurch at work. And that's scary. That was my.
wow.
I mean, it stopped me doing anything silly,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
was worried about leaving them in the lurch at work as well.
Yeah. So after the being on the tablets, you say you reached out and got some private counselling.
Yeah.
At what point did you and then you had to take ownership for that? I'm guessing you had to kind of
Yes.
Google it,
Yes.
find somebody, pick up the phone.
Yeah. From there onwards, really, it was understanding it, and yeah, but to the point of booking it all, yeah, my wife pushed it. I was so against it. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it.
Mm.
I didn't see what it was going to help. That was my opinion. Like, how is it going to help me? It really did, and I advocate that to anyone. You do need to talk about it. You have no idea how good it feels when it's out of your system.
Mm.
That release it will be that a tablet can never help. Someone just listening to you and putting life into perspective. But initially I was backing off against it completely. I didn't
Yeah.
want to know, and then after that, really, I just had to, as you said, I had to take ownership of my of it all, really. And I
Yeah.
eventually
Yeah.
then we weaned off the tablets and so forth, and went in that direction. But then only last year went back on them again because I couldn't cope.
Right.
And at that point, and I thought, I'm not going to live like this again. I'm definitely not going to let this happen again to me. This time it was a different set of tablets, but it was a different, different side effects at the same time. Didn't make me numb, but did make me ill. And I thought, I can't live like this. I can't live like this. This is not the
Yeah.
way I can live.
Putting this stuff into your body that's not meant to be there, I suppose, isn't it, in a
Yeah,
way?
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what sort of drove me then.
Mm. Mm.
Lockdown. I know lockdown has been awful. Lockdown one was awful. It had the reverse effect in so much sense to me because I became close to my family,
Mm.
spent time with my son. Whereas prior to that, so busy, taking him. And the telling point to me is when I used to take him to like a breakfast club in the morning at school,
Mm.
and I'd be getting so agitated. It'd take a long time being I think he was 4 at that point. Take forever, just getting out the door and so forth. And I used to get so angry, I used to get so agitated, just drop them off. I'd almost like leave quite resentful because
Mm.
I was in a rush. I was always just in a rush. I was in a rush wherever I went. And in that time, just to sort of stop was just like, wow,
Mm.
this is what's around me. This is what I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I knew
Yeah.
something had to change.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. So, at what point did you make that change then? I mean, I know you mentioned lockdown and stuff there, but at what point did you go, that's it, I need to do something else?
Yeah, we'd had a bit of a disagreement at work with some of my colleagues because of, again, the unknown of self-isolating and so forth. And my company wanted to bring someone back quicker than the rules were effectively.
Mm.
I was in the middle of it all, and I was the one who was getting blamed for it. So I had a lot of people turn on me. Then lockdown happened, and I just said to myself, I'm not going to go back. I can't go back to it. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep keeping other people happy.
Mm.
And when I saw how happy my family made me, and how happy to spend that quality time with my son, my business partner that worked with me, he was a salesman with me when I first initially took over as sales manager, who's my best friend. We just said we talked about doing this, but it was one of those where we thought we'll talk about it, but we'll never do it.
Mm.
We'll be
Mm.
millionaires one day.
Mm.
That sort of culture and thought process. But we sat down and said, no, we're going to do this. We are.
Mm.
I just said to him, I'm not going back. I said I refuse. And although I did go back to steady the ship, I was never gonna. I was never just gonna drop them and leave them. I went back to steady the ship, but then I left on my own accord then, and started my own company up, and that's the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And has that helped you with the depression, do you think? Have you
Uh,
come off the
yeah,
tablets and
yeah.
things?
I came off. I came off the tablets during lockdown. I had to. I almost like going cold turkey.
Mm. Mm.
I took myself off them. I said I'm not going to go back on them. I don't want to be that back on. So about the first week of April, I said I'm not going to go back on them, and I didn't had a lot of sort of problems and a lot of sort of time I needed to myself. But my wife very understanding with it all now. She
Mm.
understands.
Mm.
She knows if I need my time to myself, I have my time to myself, and I used to go for long walks by myself with the dog, and that really helped me,
Mm.
and I could really process what was going on. So no, I'm not on them now. I don't want to touch them again. Life will always throw curveballs at you. That's always going to happen. But if you don't have the strength, and it'll always affect me. I still now think I can build anxiety very easy, and things can overwhelm me at times. But I'm more coached within myself now, and how I deal with that. And again, that's why even doing this now, it's making I want people to realize that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there is a way, that there is
Yeah.
I think some people think, oh, I'm depressed, that's it now, done. And
Yeah.
I like I thought like I thought this is going to be me forever now. My sister, she's married to a psychiatrist, and she's an occupational therapist in mental health, and she just told me you're chronically depressed. You're never, that's what you are, because that's at the time that's what I was. But now I'm like a whole. Everyone keeps telling me how much I've changed, so it's all for the better.
Yeah. Well, no, that's brilliant, and I mean, we're finding as well that a lot of the people that we're talking to is actually the act of talking about it and revealing stuff and helping each other and listening and empathizing is actually as good as any of that therapy itself. Like you just said,
Absolutely.
coming on here doing this, the conversation we had last week.
But the platform as well that especially that you guys are doing, I think is fantastic. And I put a post on when it was, I think it was World Mental Health Day, and I put a post on actually saying to people and that I've struggled. I'll openly admit I've suffered with depression. It's the worst time of my life. It's a part of my life I'll never get back. It's something that's a part of me now. A part of my life's been lost to it, and there'll always be something inside me that will always be there. But I was quite surprised. I didn't really have many responses or many likes. And then in a panic, I deleted it off because I thought, oh God, what if this means that, for my business now, and what if that means that it's going to affect my business, or people are going to think, oh, he's, he can't deal with it. That stigma's still there. But I think this platform particularly, it gives people that confidence, like it has for me, to come forward and say, hey, I will talk about it openly because I want to help people at the same time. So I think it is important to talk.
Well, I mean, Daniel, you're an absolute star, and it's brilliant that you come forward and talk in this way. And I think what you've touched on there for me, is it opens up a couple of things. One is that, this aged group thing that we talked about, my age group of the 45 to 60-year-olds, we grew up in an environment where you don't talk about this stuff. There is a stigma around it. And what we kind of were encouraged to do was put a lid on stuff and repress and suppress our feelings and our emotions. And I think this is where this construct of a midlife crisis comes in, because it was our generation that would get to 45 and suddenly do something stupid. In the eyes of everyone else, it's stupid, by the way, because you get described as going off the rails because suddenly, the pressure's just got too much and you've gone bang, that's it. Hence you have a midlife crisis. Whereas I think your generation, if I may put it that way, are a lot more open to coming forward and picking up on the signals that we're putting out and going, no, actually, this isn't okay. There is a stigma and we should be addressing that and we should be talking about it. And it's not okay to have a mentality of let's drag that administrator in at 6 o'clock at night because we want to register those extra 2 cars or whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a very the fast-paced culture, and it'll be interesting to see what happens after COVID, particularly. Once the world goes back to some form of normality, whatever normal looks like now, how will those dealers who have furloughed staff and put them mess them around on sort of part-time furlough and so forth? Obviously, yes, to survive, but some have done it as a profit gain at the same time. How will these people adapt and will they change afterwards? Probably won't change. I think as soon as everything goes back to normal, that they'll just demand the same as they ever do. The manufacturers put the pressure on. They don't help. They need to change because they don't care. They're too busy thinking of their registrations. It always rolls downhill.
Yeah,
and it's.
I was going to say what does, but I think I worked it out, so I know what works.
It's it's always a lot of pressure, and I think that it's just things have to be put in place to because again, I think people really almost don't care what it does to someone, and until it's too late, and then when it's too late, someone goes, "Oh, what if only they'd said something?" You demanded so much before that. It's difficult.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I mean, I think that's the other thing I would say is about we have a culture in our industry because we're a diagnostic and fix it business. Cars come in, they're broken, we take a bit off and put a new bit on, suddenly it's fixed, right? And I think we almost have a bit of a mindset that we can do that with people, and it doesn't work like that, and we need the culture that needs to change is for somebody to be mindful of, hang on a minute, we've just put Daniel in that position. He's never done it before. He's a young lad. He's full of ambition. He's a future star. Let's support him and go and put an arm around him.
Yeah.
And, you know, at least once a week, go and sit in there with him and just say, right, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? You know, and nurture him and coach him. And not just, you know, sheep dip him through a course and tick the box and say, oh, well, the OEM provided that course, so therefore he is,
Yeah.
he's done. You know, that's what needs to change in my opinion. And I think if we can, you know, do that through people like yourself speaking up, then absolutely spot on.
Absolutely, yeah. Say what you know. Say like for me, I was in the deep end. What it was the deep end. I had no one. You know, I had no sort of support in the sense of how to do something. I was only told to do something a particular way when it went wrong. Then I had to learn that. So I learned if it went wrong, then you had to, you know, take a bit of a bollocking for it possibly. But you know, that's, you know, you only find out your mistake too late. Whereas possibly actually if you were being mentored into the role, then that wouldn't have happened at all. But again, you just had to learn as you went about, and you were trying to be macho and show your strength to the people below you as well, because you didn't want to show weakness. Because and again, it's such a vicious cycle. It's such a, you know, I think back now, and even when I think about it, just gives me shudders to think that was my mentality. You know, and you know, I'd never, you know, I'd never put myself in that mindset again ever, really, to be honest.
Yeah. So skip forward, because I think we got a bit of a happy ending here, haven't we? In that you've left that business, you started up on your own. So what are you doing now?
So I'm a director of Easy to Trade Limited, and so we're remarketing brokers. So if dealer A has a vehicle that they're looking to trade out of, it might be over age or so forth, but they're trying to get the best price they can. They can give it to us, and we'll go and find dealer B, and then we charge a buyer and a seller's fee for pulling the transaction together, basically, and getting the best price we possibly can. And it's, again, me and business partner do it together. We started it in July, and we've had great fun doing it. We've learned a lot along the way. We've made some great friends along the way as well. Now we speak to all sorts of people every day, and there's been some people who've really supported us. You know, people I've got on with within the industry for a long time who've helped me no end. I'm so thankful to them. And within the next sort of the lockdown that's just come out of hasn't helped. That's been difficult now, but it's okay. And within hopefully the next sort of 6 months or so, we'll be looking to employ sales staff, and I can't wait to do that. That's going to be the most satisfactory part to me, that I'm going to be able to, I'll be the one to decide their wage. I'll be the one to make sure that they have the best life they can have, and it won't be about my back pocket. It'll be about making sure that they're in a happy environment at the same time.
Wow.
I've not done it to become, I said it before, millionaire. I haven't done it to become a millionaire or anything stupid at all. I've done it to I just want a happy life. I want a nice, normal life where I have my weekends to myself, spend it with my family. And again, if I can, if I can have a nice life at the end of it, and as well make sure other people do, then I can't wait for that journey. But it's a journey that we've started, and it's going really well.
Well, hats off to you, mate, and you deserve every success. There's a couple of conversations we've had now, and I've been inspired after every one of them, and the same with this. So, you do deserve that success without any shadow of a doubt. One little observation I would make: if anyone's watching this podcast rather than just listening to the audio version, will have probably seen, as you described what you're doing now, there was ever such a slight little smile on your face. Which kind of says to me that you are completely now in the right place. You're doing what you're meant to be on the planet to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. I don't rush around anymore. I take my time with what I do. If I've got to work a little bit later, it's on my time. It's up to me if I decide to, but I generally don't. The amount of business owners that I know who say, I work all the hours I do. No, I don't. Once I'm done for the day. It'll wait till tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And if we're at a point where we are too stretched, we'll employ people. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to live a life to save some money, but to stress myself out. I'm done with that. I'm over that. I will literally, I'm so satisfied with what I do now. And again, some people would think, you're crazy, surely you added more pressure on yourself. to me, I couldn't lose
Mm-hmm.
because I was no way happy with what I was doing. I was not happy at all. What was there to lose, And a lot of people said to me afterwards, Dan, if it doesn't go right, give us a shout, we'll see what we can do for you. And I've sort of said, thanks, but hopefully that shouldn't be
I
the
won't
case.
need you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good for
yeah,
you.
and which I don't think I will. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, that definitely. Well, no, not with that smile on your face. No, you're
no,
definitely in
absolutely.
in the right place. Um, so, just to finish up with, then, Daniel, having been through that journey that you've been through, and you're now talking about potentially employing people in the not too distant future, what would you say are going to be your top tips that you'll take forward into a kind of leader, entrepreneur, business owner now? How are you going to be as an employer?
I think for me, it'll all be about fairness, time, quality of life, and at the same time, I hear that sort of saying quite a lot of, work hard and it all pays off at the end, and
Mm,
it's yes, I want people to work hard. I do demand the best out of people whatever I'm doing. Um, but at the same time, it'll be I'm not doing it to keep someone else happy. I'm doing it to keep me happy.
mm, mm.
So I think as a leader going forward, it's not today. Oh, the manufacturer's asked us to do this now, or oh great, we've got a VIP event this weekend, guys. Oh, I know, I'm really sorry. Yeah, but those weekends that you're meant to be off. Can you now work? I know, I'm really sorry. I haven't got to do any of that. Whatever I decide is entirely up to me, and I wouldn't put people through that anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
I will make sure everyone has, the quality life that they deserve, where work and home. That's what's important.
Well, and the secret that you've just revealed there that you may not have realised that you're doing it was actually the whole piece about in encouraging your people to have an emotional connection. And I think culturally that's the direction we're going in. You're brave enough to be vulnerable, show your vulnerabilities. That gives you compassion and empathy, which for me is the currency of leadership in the future.
Absolutely. You've got leadership isn't all about it. I see I've done so many leadership courses. I've delegation. I still baffled by delegation that, the best managers delegate. Yes, they do to some extreme, but I think that's not a leader. You have to lead from the front, and you have to, whatever your vulnerability is, they have to know it at the same time, because that's what's important. You all need to be as one, and and look after each other.
Yeah.
That's what's important, and
Yeah.
I'll definitely take that into my say when we're in that position to employ, which say will be in the very close future. We'll be really really that'll be the most satisfying part to this
Yeah,
journey.
definitely. Well, look, keep in touch with us,
Will do,
because
absolutely.
whatever we can do to help support that, this is all about changing cultures and creating, leaders of the future. And you're definitely up there with that, Daniel. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope you've enjoyed being on Men Able Matters.
Absolutely, really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate having me. Really do. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. So thank you very much. Join us on the
Thank you.
next episode.